All right, we're back with our second episode of our roster breakdown. I'm going to go through the entire Gamecock roster, started with quarterbacks. If you haven't seen that one yet, click the link. It's going to pop up on the video right now. And again, I'm Wes Mitchell alongside Chris Clark. We've got a couple of network issues right now. I don't know what's going on with my internet, but hopefully this is still going to be clear, and we'll be able to do it just like we did last time. Hopefully y'all like my new banner that I finally got put up behind me. Chris, we got to get you set up there. Have you seen the Twitter accounts that are like rating people's backgrounds in their houses when they're doing – because everybody's broadcasting from home now. We've got to upgrade I've got mine upgraded because I was like, I'm literally – this is a room over my garage / office / extra bedroom / storage room. So at least nobody can see all that now. We got to get you set up next.
Yeah, I need to upgrade. I've had several people I had a couple people, the first time we did this, I got a couple texts saying, "Are you doing it from your bathroom?" I guess the closed-in walls or something. This is not a bathroom. It's just a little nook in the office. So I was like, why did they think that? And I was like, oh, yeah, the small walls. They thought it was like a toilet room. It is not. This is an office. But, yes, an upgrade is needed, and that's one reason why. So you don't think I'm doing it for my bathroom.
Yes. Okay, so like I said, we talked quarterbacks before. Now we're going to talk running backs. The tease at the end of the quarterbacks video was, will MarShawn Lloyd take the first snap of the season at running back? Obviously, whenever we talk about this stuff, it's assuming everybody's healthy. I have said, I think we've both said for some time, the answer is yes. I'll let you speak in a second on that, but I firmly believe when you just look at the talent level of MarShawn Lloyd, the drive of MarShawn Lloyd, sometimes when these five-star guys come in, the work ethic doesn't always match the talent level. With him, it certainly does. He's a kid that's just built different, both physically and mentally. He has a great personal trainer back at home that I think, whereas some people will probably lose a bit of an edge because of, the coronavirus and being stuck at home, he will not. Already treats, I believe, his football career as if he's a professional. So I add all these things together, and I think MarShawn Lloyd is going to be in a situation where he comes right in, he plays early, and I think will probably take the first snap at running back for South Carolina.
If you had to make a call right now without South Carolina having gone through even a full slate of spring or gone through summer or whatever version of preseason camp that they're going to have, I would say yes as well. A few reasons. Number one, MarShawn, I think, is just the most talented guy. It's sort of like when Marcus Lattimore got to campus in 2010, didn't take long for us to hear this guy's the most talented guy. He ended up being the guy. And I think that'll probably sort itself out. And MarShawn certainly showed a lot, even just his limited time in January and February and into the 5 spring practices that they got to have. Deshaun Fenwick had a good spring. Kevin Harris is in there. Zaquandre Wright, whenever he gets on campus, will have a say. Rashad Amos can have a say. But I just think, look, there's not a senior running back on this roster who has some proven, consistent, multi-year track record of success. And so that's one reason it is open, the entire competition. And then when you take a guy like MarShawn, who's one of the best running backs in the country coming out, I think it doesn't make it obvious, but I think it makes it much more likely that he ends up being the guy. And I'd agree with you, Wes, that I think that'll end up happening this fall.
Yeah, I mean, I look, you watch the film, just very impressive, man. He's and not just that he's out here like jumping dudes and that gets a million views on Twitter, or your 5-second footwork video. It got 2 million views on Twitter, I think.
Right.
Not just like the flashy stuff, but I think you look at just the complete package. Not the tallest guy, which running back is one of the few positions I think in sports that's not a hindrance. In some ways, it may even be a positive because you almost see those guys They all have a low center of gravity. They can almost get lost in the shuffle when you're running behind 6'4", 6'5", or taller offensive linemen. And he's playing in an offense that traditionally has been very running back friendly. We don't quite know what Mike Bobo's offense will look like, but based on history, past performance, running backs are going to have an opportunity to get the football in this offense. What about his actual skill set, Chris, to you stands out? I mean, to me, he looks like a complete back. I wouldn't necessarily call him just like a speed burner or a bruiser or anything like that. To me, he's just a guy that can do it all and just looks like an every down running back at the SEC level.
I think it's a good point about, him being able to function really in any facet. I think, he's going to be strong and physical enough to be able to block. That's obviously a challenge for newcomer running backs. It's just adjusting not only schematically, but just to the physicality of, being able to help block, chipping on a big SEC defensive end or, taking on a linebacker who's blitzing through the A gap. Those things are difficult, but he has, I think, the mentality, the work ethic, the physicality to be able to do it. And then, you're right. He's not a one-trick pony. He's not just a third down back. He's not a guy that you feel like you got to take out in certain situations. He's an asset in the passing game. He may not be, he's not going to go to the NFL Combine one day and run 4.3, I don't think, but he's someone who has speed. I mean, he's got top-end speed. You can see it on this high school tape to where he can get in the open field and run past some guys. He's physical. He can run around guys. He can make a guy miss in the hole, and that's really what you're looking for with a big-time back. I think one comparison that always has come to mind for me, just from a skill set and a size standpoint, they just sort of look a little bit alike, is J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State, really good player for the Buckeyes, out of Texas for them. Another former highly rated guy that Ohio State got. I think there's some similarities there. I've sort of ran that past some people I trust too, and I think that's a decent comparison for him. And if he could end up being a similar player, then South Carolina's got a really good addition to that running back room.
All right, so obviously everybody knows about MarShawn. Everybody's talking about MarShawn. Everybody's excited to actually see MarShawn play. But let's talk about some of the returning guys. Obviously, the main two, the scholarship guys, you got Kevin Harris, you got Deshaun Fenwick. Kevin Harris was the one that I think you talked to people within the program last year, and there was some excitement, some positivity about him being able to take on a bigger role this year. Deshaun Fenwick was someone who was a little bit more, I would say, of an uncertain situation, a situation where he has openly admitted that he almost transferred. Will Muschamp has talked about him sticking it out as opposed to transferring. But I'll be very curious to see what role those two guys can etch out. We saw Bobo actually be very complimentary of Fenwick and what he was able to do in the first 5 practices. We didn't hear much about Kevin Harris. We didn't see him out there. We actually, I don't know if we ever found out exactly why. I assume he was banged up. But in the open portions of practice, we didn't see Kevin Harris out there. But what's your sense of what the expectations should be for those guys, Chris? And I think a lot of that is going to depend on Zaquandre White, who right now we're waiting at, it's May 12th as we're doing this video. I'd imagine the final, virtual semester for JUCO is finishing up here shortly for him. So maybe we get some word there on what the latest is on him. But I think that the two returnees and, Zaquandre White, I should say, are going to battle it out for playing time, I believe, behind MarShawn Lloyd.
Yeah, White's a guy who's really intriguing because, you look at his high school tape and what he's done in junior college, and he's got some speed and athleticism and can carve out, I think, some type of role, maybe regardless. As long as he can pick things up, he's maybe someone that you can get the ball to in spots in certain situations, get him out on the perimeter, on the edge, and let him make some things happen. He's certainly got the talent to do that and has already been in a college program before at FSU and now in junior college, so maybe a little bit more advanced physically in that regard. But, Deshaun Fenwick, again, this is a guy, Wes, that I think just needs to find consistency. And it's too soon to know, how his career may play out. I think we'll know more once we see sort of how the snaps do end up shaking out this year. But he's physically a very impressive guy. dating back to high school, a converted wide receiver who ended up playing running back, starting, I think, his junior year. South Carolina made him a priority in recruiting, had a lot of big offers. Georgia, Texas, for example, Clemson was in on him at one point. And, I think he's got the talent. He just hasn't found that consistency. And I think he's come a long way, physically and mentally, emotionally, maybe. You could even throw in there to where he's going to have a chance to help, and was having a really good spring before, from my understanding, before things got shut down. So I think he'll have a chance to help. Kevin Harris, again, a big physical presence. And the thing that we heard back in the spring, Wes, was, you just got to stay healthy. And so he had the injury last year, pretty serious injury where he was able to come back, by year's end. And then in the spring was a little banged up as well. So if he can get healthy and stay healthy, he has a chance to carve out a role too and be able to help this team. And if that room's healthy, Wes, they got a chance to have a pretty good room in terms of talent for Mike Bobo to work with.
Yeah, I tell you, the other guy that often gets lost in these conversations that I think is going to play a factor is going to be Adam Prentice, the transfer at fullback. When we think of running backs, we typically, let's be honest, South Carolina hasn't really used much fullback, not in a traditional sense, the last few years. And when they have, it's been more about just sort of slotting someone back there. Kevin Harris played some up back a bit last year in short yardage. I think you look back, they sort of just slid some guys into that position at times, and haven't really had a true fullback because it hasn't been a big part of the offense. You look at Adam Prentice, he's one of two guys on this roster that transferred in from Colorado State. I actually the numbers aren't big. Obviously, you're not going to see a bunch of stats from a fullback, but looking at Mike Bobo's offenses, Chris, he does like to if he has a guy that's versatile enough, he will implement the fullback in some other areas, whether it's getting the ball in the passing game just enough to keep a defense honest, motioning them out of the backfield into like an H-back type role, even getting them out on the edge sometimes as a blocker in the wide receiver screen game. I think Prentice will be one of those guys that is maybe not talked about, but maybe will end up being a key part of this offense. And I think if this offense is going to be successful, you'll need Adam Prentice to have a good year. And it sounds like, his teammates have already sort of caught on that this is a tough-nosed guy. You hear stories about him sort of meeting linebackers in the hole and winning those battles. And I think Prentice is a kid that we're probably going to know this name by the end of the 2020 season.
Yeah, and I mean, one area we know South Carolina has to improve is, third downs, short yardage, being more consistent in those situations. And so obviously it's not putting yourself in as many third and longs as they faced last year, but having a guy like Prentice, and then if he can stay healthy at running back, and maybe guys like Lloyd and White, Harris and Fenwick coming along, maybe can help you in those situations where you're in a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, 4th and inches. Bobo he's very interesting as a coordinator because he has experience working in that more what you would call pro style with the fullback or the offset, eye types of looks. But he also runs some spread. You see some 4 and 5 wide. You see an H-back being utilized. And so Prentice, I think that's the good news for South Carolina is you can use him in that fullback type category. You can also use him as sort of an H-back if you want. And he's a very solid pass catcher. Bobo had a number of guys at Georgia during his tenure there as offensive coordinator that he deployed as a fullback. Like you said, Wes, where if he has a guy, he's not afraid to pass it to him a bit, use some play action, even let him carry it. And Prentice sort of checks all those boxes. Is he going to touch the ball 20 times a game? No. But he's somebody who can catch the ball for you, certainly be an asset blocking, and he can play sort of that H-back role or that fullback role and I think really helped the team. I think it was a really nice addition because of someone who knows the offense, has experience playing in it, and is sort of a needed position for this team to implement.
Yeah, we'll be very curious. And I even remember the early Spurrier years at South Carolina. Fullback was still a very big, even though we think of Spurrier being wide open, spread, stuff like that, the fullback and the play action game off the fullback, play action game off the lead draw, all that stuff was a big part of the offense. And, the fullback, I think you can count on one hand the number of times that the fullbacks actually carried the football in Spurrier's offense, but he did implement them from time to time as a check down option in the passing game, and got a lot of pretty big plays, or I should say not long plays, but big plays as far as moving the sticks, using the fullback in that area. So I know there's at least a lot of Gamecock fans on the Insider Forum that are excited about the implementation of the fullback because they've been begging for the I formation for years. So we'll find out if they're right. We try to talk about the future of the positions as well when we do these breakdowns. Running back is one where, we talked about quarterback, and Colton Gauthier already committed. We already have a good feel for where things are for that class. Running back, I believe partially just because of the fact that it's sort of been a lot of change at that position. Thomas Brown is gone, obviously. Then Bobby Bentley took over for, a matter of weeks, basically. Then Des Kitchings takes over the position, plus the recruiting shutdown, frankly, keeping them from being able to get guys on campus. I believe that's a position you look at the future, the recruiting class, it's a little bit uncertain. I tend to go back to Travion Cooley, a kid out of North Carolina that I think is a 3-star guy now on Rivals. Maybe he's a little more highly recruited on some other services, or highly ranked, I should say. But I think is someone that sort of has some upward mobility in the rankings, and someone that it seems like South Carolina has highly valued. Along with some other guys out there, there's still Jalen White from Alabama, Jalen Wright from North Carolina, the speedster. So there's some guys out there that Carolina is focused on and that seem interested, but I don't get the sense that maybe we're going to know what running back recruiting is going to look like for 2021. And, of course, Tyon Evans, so I didn't mention, committed to Tennessee. I think they'll keep working him, the JUCO back originally from Hartsville. So I think recruiting is going to have to be open again, as in they're going to have visits again, probably before we actually have a pretty decent feel for what this 2021 recruiting class will look like at that position.
Yeah, I think you really nailed all the candidates there, and certainly some others could crop up. There was the kid from Savannah West that picked up the offer recently as
And
well.
Mario Brown.
Yeah, Brown is another guy to watch. And so, here's another thing, that there's no camp this summer. And so the opportunity to not only get more kids on campus this time, but actually see them in camp is sort of eliminated. And so you're flying a little bit more blind into it as you head into the season. And Evans was certainly a surprising one that South Carolina, I think you could say, was potentially even banking on, but that one's probably not over. Still got Cooley out there. You still got a few options. So I think the running back recruiting sort of falls into the category that some other spots do, many spots, and that is get to the season, find some success on the field, and then go from there. And so they've continued working those relationships, and it is sort of difficult to figure out this is what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. I think candidates out there, and some good candidates, that they can continue working and see where the chips fall eventually.
We'll hit the wide receivers next. Hope you enjoyed our running back breakdown. As always, check out our daily content on GamecockCentral.com, where you can currently use our promotional code Gamecocks2020 and get us a free trial until August of this year. So hope to see you there, and hope to see you next time on our YouTube videos. For Chris Clark, I'm Wes Mitchell. We'll see you then.